Welcome to the Property Pod with Moneyweb. The property sector is an ever-changing sector, and in this podcast series, your host Suren Naidu chats to movers and shakers in the property industry.
This is the Property Pod, South Africa's leading property investor podcast, right here on Moneyweb, featuring weekly with the who's who in South Africa's real estate sector. The show also features as a video on Moneyweb's YouTube channel, Moneyweb TV. The Reit, or South African Real Estate Investment Trust Association, has a new face at the helm, and it's a familiar face as chairperson of the association now. And she is Jackie van der Kerk, who is the CEO of JSE-listed Attack Limited. And most people will know that Attack is behind the Waterfall City, and that's the massive development just near Midrand. But Waterfall City is the brand, and it's anchored by Mall of Africa. Now, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about her new appointment as chair of the association. She was appointed in July, but it was announced in August, coinciding with Women's Month. So we're continuing with our feature of women in the property industry now. Jackie, it's been a while. I see it's almost 3 years since you last were on the podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you. I had to find a way to get myself back on your podcast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for that. We do feature you on our other shows on RSG and SAFM during results. So we're looking forward to your results coming out in September. But as mentioned, you have been appointed chairperson of the Reit Association, but you're not exactly new to the association. You are part of the sector for a number of years now, and you're taking over in the chairperson position from Estienne de Klerk. And one could argue it's the hot seat because it's the core industry body representing SA's listed property sector. Is it a big deal for you? How important is this role for you and to be appointed chairperson of this organization?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Firstly, you're very honored that you have been, chosen to be the custodian, chairperson of, as you've said, the heartbeat of the real estate investment trust, and the sector. And then it's also very important for us, to ensure that we remain the steward for the real estate sector for a number of causes, and ensuring that the industry and very much important, the REIT sector continues to be mobilized and protected, and the stewardship continues. So for me, very, very important role. For Attack, it plays a direct benefit. But then also, it's a very big responsibility and a very big honor to ensure that we continue with the work that Estienne has built, and the previous chairs before Estienne has built, and you continue with that platform that has been built.
Do you have enough time in your day? I'm sure you're very busy because you're the CEO of a JSE-listed company as well.
Good question. You make time. Initially I said, no, I don't have time for this role. But, after considering it, looking at my own workload here at Attack, I think you just find time. And also, it's just not me. There's a brilliant CEO, Joanne, that runs the day-to-day. So again, it's the custodianship and the stewardship that I need to provide. And then there's a board of excellent executives, other CEOs and executives of other REITs that shares the load. So, it's a big role, but there's a fantastic team around me, and that also drives the outcome of the REIT Association.
Besides your history in the industry, this is not the first time you heading an industry organization. You are a former president of the South African Property Owners Association. How are these roles different, and how do you plan to make your mark in the Reit Association? Especially considering, Estienne, you could argue, is a stalwart in the industry, having played such a crucial role even before the Reit Association was established.
Yeah, absolutely. And Estienne played not just, as the chair, but also as the formation of the REIT, industry in South Africa. He played an integral part of that. And thank you to Estienne. But as he's stepping on, as the group CEO of Growthpoint. Your first part of your question, how does SA REIT and SAPOA differ? I think SA REIT SAPOA speaks more to the broader property owners, industry, asset management community, municipal community, very much focus on, the fighting the cause of what we face on a general property issues we face on a day-to-day basis. But I feel that SA Reit is a bit more technical, tax, legislative, capital markets, disclosure, consistency in disclosures, the BPR that is just, the third edition that has just been released. So very much focused on the listed real estate sector, but also these two industries, how they complement each other because they don't focus on the same things and also, how they collaborate on things that do overlap. So definitely, different focus areas, and definitely as the SA Reit Association, we will not step on toes and also see how do we collaborate instead of fighting the cause individually together. The power of unity is so important for us in South Africa, and that's very important for us to continue sharing the workload and knowing who's best to initiate certain causes.
It's interesting you mentioned that because Estienne did mention either in this year's SA Reit conference or a previous one that there are a number of associations and there might be a possibility of a rationalization of them. But naturally, the SA Reit Association represents listed property companies. In the press release where announcing your appointment, there was mention of I don't want to say restructure, but a rejig of the association. And I gather you will be leading this as chairperson, and there will be other elements that you would like to drive. Can you share some insights about that move?
We also stood back, with Estienne and as a board at SA Reit to say, we've got 7 committees. Is it not the death of committees? Do we want to run an organization by committee or do we want to run an organization by outcome? And I think everyone was very much, let's focus on the outcome and not on, sitting on a committee, just sitting on a committee's sake, So we basically restructuring 7 committees into 3 committees. And that very much will be on demand basis and on outcome basis. So as each committee member, we'll say, what is our top 3 priorities? What are we going to focus on? Who are we going to collaborate with in the industry? Really focusing on output versus just, sitting in a committee and you've got a meeting and we don't have anything to say to each other, So we also respect that as an organization and an industry organization, we're very much reliant on people's time. That is the most valuable thing you have. And we're asking people, please give us your time and your influence. And if you've said this is a project that we need the following CEOs or executives or whoever's nominated to work on, and this is the outcome that we agree as a committee that we want to drive, we believe that we'll be so much more successful in using people's time more effectively and then having really a focused approach. So those are the restructuring we do, and that's the rationale behind it is really respecting people's time and then also having a much more focused approach.
Thank you for that. I know I've mentioned Estienne and it's an interview with the new chairperson, but the last question, it was an interesting move. I see, even though he's no longer chair and part of the board per se, he's been retained as a strategic advisor. Can you share some insight about what was behind this idea? Clearly, there is institutional knowledge, but there are a number of CEOs that have a number of years, including yourself, in the industry already.
Yeah, I think also Estienne represents the largest REIT in South Africa. He sits with a lot of institutional knowledge. And, with him exiting, we said, Estienne, would you, want to be like a strategic, play a strategic role? He sees a lot of different things, and we definitely don't want to lose his voice in the industry. I know Estienne is focusing on other work that he'll be doing on national and also on a council level. And we want to draw and see how we can collaborate further better and more efficient and, again, effective. So it's institutional knowledge. We've got a great board with excellent experience. And we've also got past presidents or, chairpersons like Lawrence Rapp on the committee, So we try and draw and retain institutional knowledge and also know that we represent the entire the entire industry to the best of our knowledge. Yeah, so it's a little bit of an umbilical cord. We're not cutting yet, but we do know and respect that Estienne is very busy with his new role, and we'll draw on that experience as and when we need it, and also invite him for feedback. to keep ourselves honest and make sure that we also focus on the right things in the industry.
Now, you've been with the tech since just before COVID, but you became CEO during COVID. That was when most companies were hit quite badly, but the sector that you represent was one of the worst affected. But the industry has come quite a long way since then and is faring much better. Some companies are trading at premiums, which we didn't think we'd be in. Can you share some insights on this? Because the sector rebounded quite strongly in 2025. And even this year, despite geopolitical risks and, the impact on interest rates and things like that, there is still some positivity and growth coming out of the sector compared to some other sectors.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as the Reit Association, we distributed the chart book, and it's very evident how well the Reit sector has done in 2025. And I think that was this big anticipation. We started seeing the shift in interest rates. I think all REITs have really focused on balance sheet capacity. A lot of disposals that has happened over the number of years, a lot of restructuring on balance sheets has happened. So I believe that 2025 was introspective year. Over the last number of years, REITs have been fixing up balance sheets, restructuring balance sheets, also entering into new markets, as I see as Vukile is conquering Europe, going from strength to strength now in Italy. So a lot of excitement that is brought into the industry. And then also a recovery of the, economy. We've had interest rates that has been better. We've had a consumer that can spend a bit more money. So yeah, we really were feeling a lot headwinds, but some tailwinds. And then flying into 2026, a lot of optimism. I think that optimism was shared at the Reit conference. And that's before the bizarre, Iran-US war was announced, and everything was like, moving into the different direction, so the anticipation of interest rates cuts, a low inflation peg, quickly shifted to, we've got, the first interest rate hike, and we were expecting a downward trend. But having said that, we've seen still the capital markets for the real estate industry being open. Last year, 11.4 billion was raised through book builds. This year, 6.4 billion so far raised in 2026. So definitely the premium, to NAV or, trading at NAV, enabling REITs to start tapping into the capital markets, doing some book builds. We're seeing some great debt capital market auctions coming, results coming out. So some lot of positivity, but, a lot of uncertainty again because of what's happened globally. Saab is having, a tough time. They've got that split vote that they had on interest rates. We're expecting another interest rate hike, but that you'll need to have a podcast with a banker or economist to know where the interest rates are going. I can't comment on that. We see inflation being printed at 5%, up from the 3.5% mark. So definitely a shift. We see, pedestrian growth in people, shopping centers, footfall. Is that the first sign of strain on the consumer? We're having a very, very close eye look at that. So, great year and a half, but I definitely think we've got some uncertainties. But you know what? The REIT sector, I think, is in a healthy state. The balance sheets are looking really good. And I definitely think going into this uncertainty that we might see as a short stint, hopefully, the REITs are definitely in a healthy sector and in a healthy position to weather all the uncertainties, which I honestly think the REIT sector coming through COVID, rebuilding, reforming, and where we've seen the growth in 2025 and 2026 has just been a testament of, the resilience that all of the management teams have in the real estate sector.
You almost took the words out of my mouth with the weathering the storm, because it has come through in the company results where they are better positioned for, this is not a COVID fallout, but it is going to be a tougher market. But I interviewed Gina Skuman from Citibank a couple of months ago, and she was hoping that it's a year of two halves. So it's a bit of start, but you never know what could happen. Some people are already talking about potential interest rate cuts in the new year if things change. Thank you for that, Jackie. It is Women's Month. You are the first woman to head the SA Reit Association as chair. Plus, as you mentioned earlier, the organization has a CEO in Joanne Solomon as I mentioned, CEO. And I went on the website. I see the treasurer is also a woman, a person by the name of Romy Marie, who I haven't chatted to before. Hope to have her on the show in the future. But how important is empowerment for you personally, considering how you've moved up the corporate ladder in the property sector in South Africa, but also for the organization? I suppose that speaks for itself at the moment. If you go to its the structure of its board at the moment, but also the industry, because it seems like the property industry is a little bit more empowered from a woman perspective compared to some of the other sectors.
Your last part, I do think the real estate sector could be much more empowered, or more diverse, especially with male, female representation on boards. And then also, I've just recently reviewed the Moneyweb property research on that they've put out. And it's still staggering, the low numbers of women representation. So personally for me, having a diverse, balanced board, company, business is incredibly important because you invite a voice, a different voice to the table. And I so believe in different views and different voices to get the best out of a committee or a business. It's sometimes that creative voice that sparks a thought, and an idea or a solution that you might not have around a table. So, no matter, if it's, what I believe in a well-diverse and well-structured environment. And then second of all is creating an environment where people can thrive and flourish. I'm not just a CEO, I am a mom and I'm a wife and I'm, there's a lot of other hats that I carry. And I believe in getting the best out of me and out of the staff that I have is creating an environment that you can be more than just the CEO. And I believe that that's how we will encourage people to flourish and to grow in an organization if the organizations allow people to be more than just the output that you drive. So that's a lot of intentional. I think it plays into the culture of a business, how you design a business, how you allow people to take off when your child is sick, simple stuff to, driving growth and seeing the opportunity for people to grow. So I think there's still a lot of work that we can do, but I definitely believe that attack. We've also got a CEO and a chairperson that is both female. Now the Reit Association, we carry that too, that it is possible and that we bring a unique voice. But having said that, I'm not, discouraged by not, working with males. It's we encourage just a good balance and a diverse voice in all organizations.
You mentioned the ATTAC chairperson, Ipeleng Mukari is the person, and we actually had her on the podcast. So it's good to have you. It's purely coincidental, the appointment, but it's two strong women in the industry, and obviously Ipeleng has been in the industry for a long time. Jackie, before you go, ATTAC is in a close period, so I'm not going to ask you about ATTAC financial and that sort of thing because your results are coming out in September. This is pretty much linked to the SA Reit Association, but you've been CEO at ATTAC for around 5 years, I believe. Obviously, you've been an executive for longer. You played a key role in the turnaround, especially with the challenges that all listed property companies faced after the COVID fallout. But, the company doesn't have exposure to Africa, outside South Africa, for example. So a lot has happened. You roped in the PIC. I don't really want to delve into that too much, but you personally, are you going to stay put at ATTAC as CEO? What can we expect from Jackie van Niekerk over the next few years, either at ATTAC and obviously in your other roles in this industry?
Yeah, for me, it's very important, to not just play a CEO role at ATTAC, but, contributing towards, the sector and the community. We can't just expect to not be alongside the solution. So very much, my personal purpose in life is not just to drive a great business, but business is unity and nation building. And I believe through ATTAC and then also through the SA Reit Association is we're building a better sector, we're building a better nation, creating jobs eventually, if you've got a better flourishing sector. So for me, the purpose is very deep in the why I'm part of this organization as SA Reit. You've done the hard yards now at ATTAC. Now the fun starts, low balance sheet. We're really well geared. We've got some awesome transactions we started to launch. You'll see the hotel and conferencing that we're building. We building on some great new opportunities, also within our precincts. There's some great announcements happening soon on some structuring and, upgrades and redevelopments happening. So, why leave when you're starting to have some good fun? So I'm here at ATTAC and I've got the strategy to deliver for the shareholders and I'm not yet done.
We'll have to leave it there, but we did have the developer, your joint venture partner, on that hotel out of Cape Town, and it's quite a big operator in Cape Town, and you've roped them in and brought them to Johannesburg. So I think there is quite a bit of excitement around that. But Waterfall City in general. But I'm sure you'll share more of those details when your results come out on our various shows. Sure. I appreciate your time, Jackie, on the Property Pod. That was Jackie van Niekerk, who's the newly appointed chairperson of the SA Reit Association, and she's also the CEO of JSA-listed ATTAC Limited.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Property Pod with Suren Naidu. To listen to more episodes, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates.